grateful for the invitation. It's the first time that I come here at Stanford University, so it's very impressive, and I hope that we can have a nice moment together. So to begin with, I have been asked to have this conversation with you, referring to the question, is DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, an independent country? So the question is relevant to my view, because we have now two sides of the story that are going on. Congo, of course, is an independent country. If we refer to the history as the fact that it is an independent country. So you know certainly that in the era of colonialism we had these free independent states under King Leopold II. So this first part of our history was meant to be personal property of the King of Belgium. So when he thought that the burden was too heavy, he conceded the country to the Belgian government. So we became Belgian Congo as from 1908. And then, of course, we had this colonial rule under which our population was only meant to be to accompany the colonization, because Congo was more a colony of exploitation. So education was going very slow. Girls in the first time were not allowed to go to school because all the program was only looking for boys. Because of course, under an exploitation colony, men later on are called to be, the deputy of the colonialist. So after, when we had World War II, as you know, Congo played a key role, Belgian Congo played a key role, because the raw materials that was used to manufacture the bomb, atomic bomb, that was spread over Nagasaki and Hiroshima, came from Belgian Congo. So this is the first step that put Congo in the midst of the balance of power between superpower. And anyway, our elite made a great job to seek for independence. So in 1960, we became an independent country. But you must know that Belgium didn't really accept. Only the Christians, they agreed to grant independence, and also the socialists. But the liberals, they didn't really accept. So it seems that as from 1960, Congo was submitted to some interferences that should keep grip on the economy, on the exploitation, and not let the leaders go freely under a democratic system. So when we had this independence, it was a really tough time, because we had this confrontation between East and West. But I would like here to recall and maybe to refer to two books that seem very important to my view. First of all, you have this book written by Martin Meredith, The State of Africa. And if you go to this book, you will find the explanation of all things I am just saying today, because he's one of those who really studied a lot the situation among all those countries that became independent in 1960. But there is another book I really recommend you, written by the late former president of the United States, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Maybe some of you don't know, but he wrote a book when he was running for president. And this book, was bringing his vision for his external affairs policy. And it's entitled Global Strategy for Peace. And there, why do I mention this book, this reference? It's only because he was aware of the importance of Belgian Congo. But he wanted, in this vision, he wanted that Congo and all these new countries becoming independent to have a full development. He was, trying to promote development in our countries, and he encouraged the nationalists to improve their requires, and also to make it possible that education should have also a priority. He was even planning to open American universities to our people. But this vision was interrupted because it meant to promote strong institutions in Africa and not strong men. So this was also the vision of our first leaders in the 60s, to build up countries with strong institutions so that democracy can just go, and we can have, periodically elections free and fair. But we must note that in 1965, this vision of building strong institutions was just stopped by the takeover of Mobutu. And then, for 30 years, we didn't have any more democracy, so we only had the ideology of strong men instead of strong institutions. That meant dictatorship, totalitarianism, but of course behind the scene there was also the confrontation of communism against capitalism. But as you know, being a country that played a key role for World War II, so Congo was meant to be an independent country, but aside, close to the free world and not apart. But dictatorship, just drove the roads away. So now what we are seeing is that, again, Congo is in the midst of a rush of raw materials. You have today science, technology. You have also these coltan and also cobalt, which puts Congo among the first producers of these raw materials. To go to Congo, but under which state leadership? We don't have anymore a strong state leadership, because after Mobutu's regime, we had immediately these rebellions that came. But also here, behind the scene, there was just the will of those liberals in Belgium who, again, won elections in Europe and wanted now to go back to the past and to make Congo again a land of exploitation. And that means that no democracy, again a dictatorship. That is why you hear about Kabila, Kanambe, and Kagame. And today, we as Congolese, we do not accept that Congo must be again the battlefield of the rush for these raw materials. We think that we should have drawn lessons from the past to know that today the threat for the free world is terrorism. But this terrorism now, it's fed by the instability in Central Africa. And the instability in Congo is also the main point for all this, all this mess, if I can say so, in the world and in Africa. So, what do we see today? It's that it seems there are two agendas. One, showing in the international world that Congo is a normal country and that there is mismanagement by the leaders. But I don't think that it concerns mismanagement. I think instead it has much more to do with a plot, international plot, because we've heard from leaders of Europe and some other countries that, oh no, Congo now is too big. It was not big enough in the past to be ruled by Mobutu. But now, all of a sudden, it has become, oh no, too big, oh no, we should split, oh no, Rwanda should take some part in the eastern. But what is hidden in the agenda of letting Rwanda take, control of the eastern part of Congo? There is another agenda that is never told, that never written in the papers here. Because, on the side of the story of Rwanda, there is an argument, oh no, in the past centuries, Eastern Congo, Kivus, it belonged to Rwanda, so now we have to take it back. It's not true. Because the independence of Congo means that the borderline we've inherited in the 60s, it's still the borderline that we should be convinced that this belongs to Congo. So, I know that the encouragement given to the Rwanda regime today came also from some leaders here in the West. And I can here mention Mr. Herman Cohen, who was the undersecretary in the past of the US government for Africa Affairs. And what did he say some time ago? He said, well, to Rwanda authorities, he said, if you develop your country, then we can close our eyes on human rights abuses. So this was, the goal for Rwanda. He develops the country, he gives good examples in terms of management, but the closing eyes on human abuses, it means what? It means that he has his agenda. Of course, to recover all the region, the sub-region, the eastern region, because he thinks that this is Rwanda for him. But, we had Berlin Conference, to bring up in the light Congo as it is known today. But now, have we had another conference saying that now things have changed, that the borderlines are no more the same? We didn't have this conference. So I think that matters that goes so far as to move borderlines, it needs conference with all the protagonists. And it cannot be just a dictatorship or just one thinking of one man, because here again we have the ideology of a strong man. And this strong man is just ruling all the area of Eastern Congo. And to do that, he needed also to have a weak state leadership in Congo. That is why you hear about Kabila. And by the way, let me tell you that Kabila Joseph is not the son of Kabila. His father's name is Kanambe, Christopher. So his real name is Hippolyte Kanambe. So I think the whole world was mistaken throughout all these years. It's not a leader of our country. That is why, under Kabila's leadership, Congo has, become a dependent country and not an independent country. Because he had to deal with Kagame. He's a commissioner, in other words, of Kagame, because this agenda should have been achieved within 30 years. He was promised, Kabila, to reign over Congo 30 years, like Mobutu reigned over Congo 32 years, you see, because the plan was meant to take place during all these years. And how? How did they go so far in reaching this dependency? It was this agenda, of course, development on one hand, and good examples on one hand, and oh yes, Kagame, yes, he's doing well. Now look at Rwanda, it's wonderful, everywhere very clean, etc. Good management, good governance. But on the other side, he was just rushing to get his new territory, and for that, he needed rebellions to take place in Congo. He needed that all this rebellion, just exterminate women and little girls. As you know, Dr. Mukwege, the one who was awarded many prizes throughout the world, even titles of honoris causa. Why? Because he is called now the man who repairs women. Can you accept this? The man who repairs women. He is only there to repair, but he has nothing to do to deal with the causes, to stop the symptoms that bring this situation. So, on the other side, he gets awards. Okay, population, oh yes, Congo is now acknowledged, now we are suffering. But it's only one man who gets this reward. And otherwise, the situation is still getting worse. Because this agenda is not only to push rebellions to destabilize the country, to make it impossible for Congolese to run their own country, and even more, to kill Congolese. So, excuse me, I am Congolese. As it has been mentioned, I had some responsibilities in the past. But now I'm fighting just as my fathers and other fellows Congolese did in the 50s. So they brought us back 50 or 60 years back. So we have to fight again for a new independence. You see? Why? Because we are being exterminated. Can you understand what it means in a country here where also these matters occurred in a long, long past? So now the problem for us, we have to gain this new independence, because now who is running the country? Of course, as I said, Kagame is there. But who is going along with Kagame? All these companies. You have Canadian companies rushing for oil, others for diamonds, others for cobalt, others for coltan. You know, behind all our smartphones lies the blood of a child labor. Please remember that. I don't condemn those companies to come to my country because they have some technology, that must be put into practice. But the way they do it, they go in the house of someone illegally. We are there as landlords. They can just come by the front door and we are ready to welcome them and to see, oh, what do you bring to me? Is it interesting to me? Oh, on a basis of a win-win partnership, yes, we can go along, let's make a contract, etc. It's so easy to do it without killing our people. But they prefer to make it quick, to gain a lot, and no matter who these children are. And those children, child labor, are most of the time orphans. Orphans of all these women killed very, fiercely. Because what do they do? And this is sponsored by Kagame. It's not mentioned in the papers, but believe me, I'm a mother. And I know how heavy it is to see women completely mutilated. And where do they mutilate the women? Just where fertility is about. You see? So, it's not enough to kill the woman. It's not enough to rape them. It's not enough to set fire in the villages so that the people can escape in the forest. But in the forest, there are people, there are rebels waiting for those populations to rape the women. And the men is saying, the children are, they are spectators of these scenarios. And once they rape, if they not kill, then they take this special knife that, they take, then they cut the body. So I didn't want to bring the pictures because it's too emotional. Believe me, even today, we are facing this situation since 20 years, but even for me, looking at those pictures, it's always a new bunch of emotions. So I didn't bring it because my purpose is not to make emotion on you. My only purpose to come here is to make you understand that there is something wrong going in Central Africa and that we must put an end to this instability. Okay, so now let me tell you that the consequences of this is what? When they kill women, when they prevent women to give birth again, because of course there is a man who repairs them, but he cannot bring again the capacity of giving birth, so this is erased. And what does happen within 5 or 10 years? The rate of mortality of Congolese, of course, goes high. But the rate of fertility goes down. And in 10 years or 15 years, no more Congolese around. But instead, all those rebels sponsored by Rwanda and Uganda, of course, they come with their children, they come with their wives. So you have a balance of demography that is just changing. Instead of having Congolese living in the villages, now you have new incomers that come and take the place of the Congolese. And it's so easy then, after a period, that Kagame can come and say, oh, no, 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 it's around his territory. Of course, because you've killed all the Congolese. You also raped and mutilated Congolese women. So all these Congolese women, where are they? If not killed, where? Nobody knows. Anyway, this is the second version of the situation. So, I only say here that this situation is also sponsored by some countries' international community. And let me give you some examples. You've heard about Quantum, Canadian company. You've heard about MFI, American, etc., and some others, you know, partners inside. And do you want me to give me some names that lies behind those companies? MFI, you have former President Mr. Clinton. And Quantum, you have also leaders of Canada. So you have also as advisor of one time, Mr. Tony Blair, former Prime Minister of England, United Kingdom, who was, you know, along Mr. Kagame. So do they need to go there and to help our dictators? I mean, it's just nonsense. And you see also responsible people on humanitarian basis, people like Mr. Bill Gates, who I appreciate, of course, because he has a willing of doing good in the world, but they are treating with someone who is cheating. Why not just come back to the law, to principles, and then call Congolese, because it is our land. And so far we are going to fight for this land, because nothing, no conference, nowhere told us that things have changed. So we do not accept that our people be exterminated continuously. And now they are trying again to trick the curses, the situation by bringing again rigged elections. And I know how it means here in this country, having rigged election, huh? Don't you? So we don't want either to have rigged elections, because behind those rigged elections lies again the will to continue the plundering of our country and the finishing of this agenda of 30 years promised to Kabila and Kagame, so that they can take control of the Congo. And I would like here to tell you also that one cannot come set fire and be at the same time a firefighter. It's impossible. It's impossible. Either you are in a complicity, or you are, the brain of the whole situation. So Congo doesn't suffer of lack of skills, of lack of human resources to manage the country. Congo is suffering of the greed of some partners outside Congo who just cheat, because of course in a country where there is no law, the state is just collapsing, of course no tax. No tax. They come here, no tax. But the small people, they have to face tax cuts, etc., etc. But they go as big lords in Africa, and I think very respectfully, we must accept this anymore. So I hope that here you can also understand that Belgium, because we cannot forget to mention the key role played by Belgium, because as former colonial rule, of course they have a say throughout the world when it comes to talk about Congo. They always go there to time move to questions. Okay, thank you. I was just on my way to finish. No, I was just on my way to. I was just on my. Just a few minutes to conclude.
Certainly.
Okay, so just in a few words, Belgium is still playing a role, but who gave Belgium mandate to do so? Nobody. It's again just a handful, some people who wanted to take control over the wealth of Congo, and I mean to deal under the curtain so that they become more powerful in their own country. Because of course, I know a minister in Belgium, a liberal minister to be more precise, who went to see Kabila and said, well, Mobutu voted a law that protects your soil, or supposedly that it was Congolese, to protect the Congolese soil and mineral resources. You have to break this law so that anybody can come, all these companies can come and I mean, do what they want to do. And Kabila, of course, not being a Congolese, he accepted because he's there only a commissioner of Kagame, and they needed these scenarios to make possible that this other hidden agenda can go, you know, continue. So I can only tell you that terrorism, it may be a situation that is threatening the world today. But if we don't put an end to this situation, terrorism will soon come back to you by the Congo. Because all these conflict areas in Middle East, they pour in Congo today. Because it's now a free land. Anybody can come, take some uranium, go to North Korea, take also uranium, go to Iran, etc. And at the same time, you will see Mr. Trump, no, Iran, I must do this, I must do this. But the one who gave power to Iran to get more uranium is Kabila. What are they doing with Kabila? Nothing. And now they are ready to sponsor another round of elections, rigged elections, because just Kagame is just convincing them, but he's lying. You see? So this is the situation. Of course, much has been said, much has been written, and it's still not enough because our people are still suffering. Please note that we have lost more than 80 million people by the Kivu's instability, and it is continuing today. Schools do not exist anymore in our country. Even adults, when they write, you can hardly imagine that they went to school because the quality of education has collapsed. So this is the tragedy we are living through. And I hope that my visit here can give you the curiosity, because I don't pretend to bring you everything, all the news, but if I can just wake up your mind, then it will be successful for me. Thank you very much, and now I hope your questions can come.
I'll let you call on the audience. We have about 10-ish minutes for a couple of good questions, please.
Yes, sir.
It was a very fine presentation, and it's very interesting, and I certainly do go along with a lot of what you said. But prior to the present situation, prior even to Joseph Kabila, was Laurent Kabila. And during what they call the African World War III, when all of the countries, many of the countries that were on the border, and even some that weren't on the border, like Sudan, send forces into the country to try to perhaps gain some foothold, or perhaps just to present some African unity. One of those countries was Zimbabwe. Many of their troops and the Zimbabwe Defense Force were awarded properties with resources at the time. They're still there. And I am only suggesting that much of this started before Joseph Kabila. It started during Mobutu's time, and even after Mobutu died, there was period of Laurent Kabila. And so, I mean, is anything new? Is there anything new with regard to the situation in Congo?
Yeah, maybe you are right to mention all these facts, but I'm also right to tell you what I've just said. But of course, Zimbabwe, all these countries, they came to help Laurent Désiré Kabila. But Laurent Désiré Kabila, he got mistaken himself because he thought that he could be head of state. But he was only used. He didn't know it in the beginning. He was used by Rwanda because, of course, the plan, when they took decision to invade our country, the plan was, oh, is there a Congolese around we can just use as, you know, spokesperson? He was firstly a spokesperson. It's in his own will that he decided to pronounce himself, to promote himself as head of state, because he started as, by the moment they started to get into Congo, he noticed that there was another agenda, because of course some fellow compatriots were killed during their walk to the Congo. So he thought to himself, no, if I don't take a decision now, I mean it will be too late. That is the reason he just promoted himself as head of state, of course. And but the plan wasn't that Laurent Désiré Kabila be head of state. He was just there to be used because of this second agenda of Rwanda to take the eastern part, but they only needed some excuse to get into the country, you see, because it was not enough to pretend to pursue those who killed Rwandese during the genocide period, you see. Because of course of this Opération Turquoise that took place in the eastern part and sponsored by French government, many of the killers, they of course came to Congo and they were, you know, in camps. But he said, Kagame pretended, the international community, that, oh no, if I don't go to Congo to, you know, to pursue all these killers, and I will be threatened in my borderline. But how can you imagine? You go as far as 250 kilometers. Is this the borderline? No. So he started his invasion as from that moment. So of course Laurent Désiré Kabila didn't know that he would be killed. He could maybe have some you know, feeling that these things could happen. But I mean, he took his responsibility. And we cannot blame him because he thought that, because I worked a few months in this government by then, but I had to resign because of course I noticed that there was another agenda and I couldn't accept that. So Laurent Désiré Kabila, yes, he couldn't do much, only 3 years as in office. It's not enough when you just inherit a dictatorship that lasted more than 30 years, Mobutu's regime. So that is the reason when he is assassinated that the plan should continue. And to be continued, it needs someone who is totally devoted to Kagame. That is why they just manipulate the situation. Oh no, you will be recognized as Joseph Kabila. Don't say anything. You bring your people, you bring your family, and you will run the country. Of course, with arms, weapons, and so forth. So Zimbabwe and all these countries that came to give a hand to Laurent Désiré Kabila, of course they plundered also. The situation was such. This was also another manner to be paid back, because of course the country was in total bankruptcy at the end of Mobutu's regime. So how could he get the help and at the same time pay them? No. So they took some diamonds, they took some coltan, etc. I mean, we can understand that, but today, let me tell you that it is known by all these countries that Joseph Kabila is not Joseph Kabila. And what is taking place today in Congo is just, I mean, he's trying to escape. But it is also amazing to see how many countries, international community, United Nations, even if we have had during 20 years MONUSCO in Congo to protect people, but now it seems that they never protected people because some flights of United Nations in the area in Eastern Congo, it is only used to take off raw materials and to bring it somewhere in the outside the country. So this situation is very complex, of course, I agree, but it also shows that everybody is not very honest in the international community, because they would prefer to have this country split. But I can tell you the national conscience is getting stronger and stronger. And one of these days, don't be astonished to hear that maybe some kind of revolution may arise, because, you know, I met myself when I during my last journey in Congo, I met a group having a conversation. They didn't know who I was. And there was a Turkish citizen, a Lebanese, and an Iraqi also, and they were giving advices to some Congolese who were complaining, oh yeah, how do you do in Middle East, because here we are suffocated, Belgium is still running the country, still cheating on us, etc. So, and one of them, the Iraqi, said, he was a free man, he came with his normal visa in Congo, he said, well, we in Middle East, we take also life as a price. Life as a price. So the day you can kill also a white man, this is his words, it's not mine. He said, the day you can kill a white man, that day you will be respected as a nation. Because you have to defend yourself and put also life on the balance. So these are kinds of things that the people being impoverished day after day, year after year, there must come some day where the people will be fed up, and then they will just go and do foolish things, and they can also kill people. So this is why I'm really longing to explain that time has come that Congo be restored and Congo be stabilized, and that the people of Congo, the leaders of Congo that we are, being listened at last.
Okay, we'll have to end there. You can come up after. So thank you so much for...
It was I hope I can give a bit of a touch of curiosity. I hope.
Did she?
Did? Yeah? Okay, thank you.
Balandi, à micro du pasteur Bobo, nous sommes ici. Ici, c'est à l'Université de Californie. Nous sommes je suis pas au Kassabo, à sa speech devant mes délais, devant mes étudiants à l'Université de Californie, grande université. Nous allons être aux humains western, hollandais. Je suis pas au Kassabo. Et comme étant toujours un message, tout ça en haut. Tout quand tu vas à l'université, les étudiants, essayer de réfléchir. Quand ça m'a dit tout le monde combat, automatique combat à d'autres niveaux. Donc on a lancé aux États-Unis, on y est à l'université américaine. On a dit qu'on a combat autour de la barre, autour de la donc on a dit à côté si un mot, à ça un débat, à étudiants, à côté des sénateurs, donc on va être les amis du pasteur Bobo, tout ça à la carte de Californie. Donc je sais où que ça va, il était ici, juste ici, pour faire la speech devant les étudiants, parce que on est dans la pause de midi, on est dans la pause avant midi, mais on va je sais pas où ça va. On a ma question. Merci. À la prochaine.